The legends behind 6 of the most intriguing Vikings characters. Be warned that this video will most likely contain spoilers for the upcoming seasons of the show. Number 6. Rollo. Rollo was born in Mur, western Norway, sometime in the late 9th century, and there's no evidence of his relation with Ragnar. After journeying across the sea to Scotland and Ireland, Rollo and his men sailed up the river Seine and had took part in a number of daring raids in the northwest of France, eventually settling in the lands between the Seine Valley and the Rouen. Unable to do much else about the Northmen, Charles the Simple granted Rollo permission to stay and farm the fertile land there, on the condition that he protected from further raids by other Vikings looking for land and spoils. Rollo was then baptized as Robert and would become arguably more famous than Ragnar. He ruled over the area that would eventually become known as Normandy for a decade, with his son William Longsword succeeding him after his death. Rollo's offspring would then change the course of Europe's history, ruling as Dukes of Normandy until his great-great-great-grandson William the Conqueror would decide to take England once and for all. Number 5. Lagertha, the Shield Maiden. According to the few sources telling us anything at all about Lagertha's life, her meeting with Ragnar happened when Ragnar was on a journey of revenge. The strong-willed Shield Maiden Lagertha fought alongside Ragnar specifically in a battle against Fui, King of Sweden. Seeing how brave and furious she was, Ragnar was instantly attracted to Lagertha and wanted to marry her, though she was not interested in him. She had a massive bear and a great hound guarding her home. Ragnar managed to kill the beasts, and Lagertha was so impressed that she accepted Ragnar's hand in marriage. Ragnar was still annoyed by Lagertha setting those beasts out on him and decided to divorce her in order to marry Thora Townheart, daughter of King Harald of Sweden. When Ragnar returned home to Denmark, he was faced with a civil war. Lagertha decided to aid Ragnar with 120 ships. Deep down, she still loved Ragnar and wanted to help him no matter the cost. After the battle, Lagertha returned home to her husband. Just like in the TV show, she killed him with the head of a spear she hid in her gown and took control of his estate and lands, carrying on his family name. Number 4. Bjorn Ironside. On the contrary to how it was depicted in the show, Bjorn was the son of Ragnar and Åslaug. Legend has it that he went on to forge his own dynasty after Ragnar's death, becoming king of Sweden and giving birth to offspring that would rule the country for hundreds of years. A renowned naval commander, Bjorn led a large Viking force across the Mediterranean, pillaging Gibraltar and countless settlements along the coast of Spain before hitting the south of France and eventually capturing the Italian city of Pisa. From Pisa, Bjorn and his men traveled inland to the city of Luna, which they mistakenly believed to be Rome, due to its staunch defenses that they simply could not breach. After seeing no other alternative, Bjorn sent a messenger to Luna's bishops, claiming that he was on his deathbed and had converted to Christianity. Believing Bjorn's trickery, the clerics allowed a small honor guard to carry the supposedly dead chieftain's body to the town's church, where he leapt from his coffin and cut his way to the city gates, opening them and allowing his men to flood the streets and take the city. In the TV show, Ragnar was the one that played dead in the coffin in order to get through the Parisian defenses and open the gates, allowing his fellow Vikings to raid the city. Leaving Italy with an amassed fortune, Bjorn ran into trouble as he returned to the Straits of Gibraltar, ambushed by the Saracen navy who sunk 40 of his ships, though he was able to make it back to Scandinavia, where he died a rich man. Number 3. Queen Åslaug. Åslaug was the daughter of Sigurd and the shield maiden Brunhilda, but was raised by Brunhilda's foster father, Heimir. After the deaths of her parents, Heimir was concerned about Åslaug's security, so he made a harp large enough to hide the girl. He then traveled as a poor harp player, carrying the harp containing her. After arriving in Norway, they found shelter with a peasant couple who took a shining to the harp. Realizing it was a case for hiding something after they murdered Heimer in his sleep and busted the harp open in search of jewels, they were shocked to find Ausloeg hidden away in there. With no alternative, they renamed Ausloeg Klaka, translated as crow, and raised her as their own, covering her in dirt and hiding her beautiful face with a hood so that no one could recognize her as the offspring of warriors. They couldn't keep her hidden forever though. Ausloeg was discovered bathing in a lake by Ragnar's men, and they burned the bread they were supposed to be keeping an eye on when they were distracted by her naked body. Demanding an explanation, Ragnar had his men bring the woman to him, and he saw at once why the bread had burned. Number 2. Ragnar Lothbrok. The real Ragnar Lothbrok seems to be a composite of a number of warriors and is difficult to separate from the myth. It is believed that the main inspiration behind the legend was a particularly vicious Viking king known as Ringenheri, who hanged over 100 Christians after he successfully laid siege to Paris in the year 845. Lothbrok is a nickname rather than a second name, which actually means hairy breeches. Ragnar got his nickname from his cowhide pants that he wore while fighting against a serpent that breathed poison. Ragnar had 3 wives, Lagertha, Ausloeg, and Thora Townheart. His wives gave him many sons, the most famous ones being Björn Ironside, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, Ubi, and Eva the Boneless. There are 2 versions of the story about Ragnar Lothbrok's death. One is that he was seized by his foe King Eal of Northumbria and killed by being thrown into a pit of snakes. His sons bloodily avenged him by invading England with the Great Heathen Army, a combined army of Vikings. The other was that he died of a disease similar to diarrhea, caused probably by dysentery, right after he ravaged Paris. Number 1. Eva the Boneless. Eva the Boneless was the oldest son of Ragnar and Ausloeg. Although he was known as a ruthless warrior, the sagas emphasize his wisdom, cunning, and mastery of strategy and tactics in battle. The origin of the nickname is not known. The saga of Ragnar Lothbrok says that Ausloeg warned Ragnar to wait 3 days before consummating their marriage, saying that the gods would not be pleased and their child would be cursed otherwise. Ragnar ignored her warning, and Eva was born with legs with gristle-like structures instead of bones. Other theories suggest Eva was called the Boneless because he was impotent, or because he had a very flexible physical form like a snake. After Ragnar was captured and killed by King Eal, Eva made peace with and asked King Eal to give him some land only as large as an ox's hide could cover. King Eal thought of Eva as a fool and granted his request. According to the story, Eva cut the hide in such a fine way that, in the end, it was possible for Viking men to build a fort in the land King Eal provided. The following year, Eva and his brothers, Hvitsak, Björn, Sigurd, and Ubba invaded Northumbria, eventually capturing Eal at York in 867. According to legend, Eal was executed by Eva and his brothers using the blood eagle method. After a very successful campaign in England, Scotland, and Ireland, Eva died of a sudden disease in 873. In the 19th century, it was suggested that Eva might have died from brittle bone disease, and this might have been the reason why he was called boneless.